It's the thought that finds you in the stillness. When the world quiets, when the notifications cease, when the sun dips below the horizon and the dust of the day settles. It's there. It's the same rhythm, the same refrain, the same voice that keeps pulling you back from the edge of peace. You know the one. The problem that loops. The hurdle that repeats. The anchor that drags. You've tried to outrun it with busyness. You've tried to drown it with noise. You've tried to silence it with logic, with lists, with the endless ticking of tasks. You thought perhaps if you were loud enough, fast enough, successful enough, it would finally lose its grip. You thought the distraction would be your deliverance. But it persists. It waits. It's relentless. But what if that problem wasn't your enemy? What if the thing that won't let you go is actually the thing that won't let you settle? What if the voice that keeps you up at night is not a warning, but a whisper of something far greater? What if it is not a wound to be bandaged, but a compass to be followed? This is the pulse. The deep, seismic, untamable pulse that lives in the quiet spaces between your thoughts. It doesn't care for your comfort. It doesn't yield to your convenience. It's not interested in your fragile peace. It is interested in your truth. It's the vibration of a reality that is begging you to pay attention, to sit with it, not to fight it, but to feel it until it breaks you open. Because the problem won't let you go because you are on the precipice of a transformation. It is the friction that creates the spark. It is the pressure that forms the diamond. It is the gravity that pulls you to your knees so that you can finally find the strength to stand. So, in this moment, I ask you, stop. Stop running. Stop rationalizing. Turn toward the ache. Face the thought. And listen. For embedded in its roar is the whisper of a new beginning. And it is leading you, not into a void, but into the very heart of your own becoming, the universal itch. It is the most fundamental, shared, and frustrating human experience, that quiet, persistent agitation of the soul that refuses to be soothed. Think of it as a splinter beneath the skin of your consciousness. It is not a wound that bleeds, not a crisis that screams for immediate attention, but a dull, unceasing throb that makes itself known in the gaps between your distractions. You can feel it when you are driving alone, when you are lying in bed at 3 in the morning, when you are staring out a window at nothing in particular. It is the question that hangs in the air after the conversation ends, the unfinished sentence that loops in your mind, the memory that surfaces unbidden and refuses to sink back into the depths. This is not the noise of the world, this is the noise of the self, and it is far more unsettling because there is no one else to blame, no external switch to flip, no mute button to press. You have tried every remedy. You have filled your days with noise, with motion, with the relentless pursuit of the next thing. You have scrolled until your thumb ached, worked until your eyes blurred, socialized until your voice grew hoarse, all in a desperate attempt to outpace that faint, gnawing sense that something is off, something is unresolved, something is waiting. And yet, it persists. It is the loyal companion you never asked for, the shadow that lengthens as the sun of your busyness begins to set. It is the crack in the foundation of your carefully constructed life, the one through which the cold air of truth seeps in. But here is the paradox that most never stop to consider. This persistent irritation is not a malfunction of your mind, it is a feature of your spirit. It is the sensor that detects when you are veering off course. It is the internal alarm that sounds when you have silenced your own voice for too long. The problem that won't let you go is not a punishment for your inadequacies, it is a plea from the deepest part of you, begging to be heard. It is the part of you that knows you are capable of more, destined for more, but has been trapped beneath layers of obligation, expectation, and fear. This persistent thought is your soul's way of tapping you on the shoulder, gently at first, then with increasing urgency, until you finally turn around and acknowledge its presence. We spend so much of our lives treating this universal itch as a nuisance to be eliminated, a glitch to be fixed. We medicate it, we rationalize it, we project it onto others, hoping that if we can just solve the external problem, the job, the relationship, the finances, this internal discomfort will finally dissolve. But it never works. The relief is always temporary because the problem is not out there, it is in here, and it is not a problem at all. It is a guide. It is the friction that is meant to slow you down, to force you to look inward, to ask the questions you have been avoiding. What if this recurring thought is not a sign of your brokenness, but the first thread of your unraveling, the unraveling that must happen before you can be rewoven into something truer, something stronger, something that finally fits? This itch, this irritation, this problem that will not let you go, it is the most honest thing about you. It does not lie, it does not flatter, it does not pretend. It simply is. And in its insistence, it offers you the most profound gift, the opportunity to finally stop running, to sit with the discomfort, and to discover that what you have been trying to escape is actually the very thing that has been trying to bring you home, the signal in the static. This is where everything begins to shift, where the torment transforms into a transmission, where the incessant buzz of your circling thoughts is revealed not as interference but as intention. Imagine you are holding a radio, turning the dial through a wall of white noise, and suddenly, beneath the crackle, you detect a faint but unmistakable pulse. It is rhythmic, purposeful, insistent. That is what your recurring problem truly is, not the static itself, but the signal buried within it. For too long, you have been mistaking the messenger for the message. You have been so consumed by the surface-level agitation of the thought that you have failed to recognize the profound current running beneath it. The problem that clings to you, that revisits you in your quietest moments, is not a random malfunction of your mind. It is a targeting system. It is your inner compass spinning wildly because it has detected that you are heading in the wrong direction, and it is trying desperately to recalibrate you toward true north. Every time you dismiss it, every time you push it down or medicate it or outrun it, you are silencing the very voice that is trying to save you. Consider the nature of misalignment. When a machine is operating outside its design parameters, it does not function smoothly. It vibrates, it overheats, it emits warning signals that something is wrong. You are no different. You were not designed to live a life of quiet desperation, to suppress your truth, to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. And so, when you do, when you compromise your values, when you ignore your calling, when you settle for comfort over courage, your entire being registers the dissonance. That dissonance manifests as the problem that won't let you go. It is not an enemy attacking you, it is your own architecture alerting you to a fault line. It is the internal vibration of a life that is out of tune with its own essential melody. This is the signal. It is encoded with information, with guidance, with the coordinates of your liberation. But you cannot decode it through avoidance. You cannot interpret it through panic. You must be still enough, brave enough, to listen past the surface static and discern its true frequency. The static is everything else, the fear, the doubt, the ego's desperate attempt to protect you from the discomfort of growth. It is the noise of your conditioning, the voices of others that have been internalized, the stories you have been told about who you are and what you can become. The static is loud, chaotic, and designed to overwhelm. It wants you to believe that the problem is the problem. It wants you to stay stuck in the loop, spinning your wheels, exhausting yourself with solutions that only address the symptoms. But the signal is quieter, deeper, more patient. It does not shout, it pulses. It does not panic, it persists. And it is always, always telling you the same thing: you are not where you are supposed to be. Not in a punitive sense, not as a judgment, but as a simple, factual invitation to course correct. The signal is the truth that you already know, the one you have been trying to hide from, the one that whispers to you in the dead of night that you are meant for something more, something different, something that terrifies you and excites you in equal measure. So, the next time the problem surfaces, resist the urge to label it as a burden. Do not reach for the distraction, do not silence it with shame, do not curse it as your curse. Instead, lean in. Recognize that you are not hearing noise, you are hearing a summons. The static is the fear of change, the signal is the call to change. The static is the echo of your past, the signal is the blueprint of your future. And the signal will never abandon you. It will never give up on you. It will continue to pulse, to vibrate, to insist, because it knows what you have forgotten, that the problem that won't let you go is not an obstacle to your peace, but the very pathway to it. It is the frequency of your own becoming, and all you have to do is tune in the moment of stillness. It is the most counterintuitive, most terrifying, and most essential step in the entire journey. When the problem grips you, when the signal pulses urgently, every fiber of your being screams for action. You want to fix it, solve it, escape it, dismantle it with the sheer force of your will. The world has trained you to believe that movement is progress, that noise is power, that the busier you are, the more effective you become. But this is the great deception. This is the trap that keeps you spinning in the static, exhausting yourself on the hamster wheel of reaction, never once pausing to ask if you are even running in the right direction. The moment of stillness is a radical rebellion against this tyranny of motion. It is the deliberate, defiant, almost violent act of stopping when everything inside you screams to keep going. It is the pause that does not feel like a pause but like a collapse, like falling backward into the unknown without a net. And yet, it is precisely in this suspension, this breath held between the heartbeats of your frantic existence, that the answer finally has room to breathe. Think of stillness as the clearing in a dense forest. You have been thrashing through the underbrush, branches whipping at your face, thorns tearing at your skin, convinced that the only way out is to push harder, faster, more desperately. But the problem that won't let you go is not a monster to be conquered in the thicket, it is a doorway that only reveals itself when you stop thrashing and stand perfectly, terrifyingly still. In the quiet, the path becomes visible. In the absence of motion, the direction becomes clear. Stillness is not passivity, it is the highest form of active presence. It is the sharpening of your inner vision, the tuning of your inner ear, the gathering of all your scattered forces into a single, potent point of awareness. It is the moment when you stop trying to change the world around you and finally turn your attention to the world within you, where the real battle has always been fought and the real victory has always been waiting. But stillness is difficult. It is uncomfortable. It is the space where all the fears you have been outrunning finally catch up to you, where the silence amplifies the voice of your doubt until it seems deafening. This is why most people never truly arrive at stillness. They brush against it, feel its edge, and recoil in terror. They reach for their phones, for their tasks, for anything to fill the void and drown out the echo of their own unanswered questions. Yet, it is in the embrace of that very discomfort that the transformation occurs. Stillness is the crucible. It is the fire that does not burn but refines. It is the pressure that does not crush but compresses you into something diamond-hard and luminous. When you finally stop, when you surrender to the pause, you are not giving up control, you are surrendering the illusion of control to access a power far greater than your own frantic efforts. In that moment, the problem ceases to be a weight and becomes a teacher. The questions you have been asking shift from, "How do I fix this?" to "Why is this here?" and "What is it showing me?" The noise of the external world fades, and the internal landscape emerges, vast and uncharted, filled with the coordinates of your own truth. Stillness allows the solution to rise from the depths, not as a conclusion you have forced, but as a realization you have received. It is the difference between digging furiously for water in the sand and simply allowing the well to fill on its own. The moment of stillness is not a delay in your journey, it is the very heart of it. It is the sacred space where the signal is finally decoded, where the static dissolves, and where the problem that has haunted you reveals itself not as your adversary, but as your ally, holding the key to the very freedom you have been seeking, the shift to seismic listening. This is where the true alchemy occurs, where the ordinary act of hearing transforms into the extraordinary art of profound reception. You have been listening your entire life, or so you have believed. You listen to the words of others, to the demands of your schedule, to the relentless chatter of your own anxious mind. But this is surface listening, the shallow skimming of sound that barely scratches the epidermis of meaning. Seismic listening is something else entirely. It is the descent into the deep earth of your own being, the attunement to frequencies so subtle, so foundational, that they escape the grasp of your ordinary senses. It is the difference between hearing the wind and feeling the tectonic plates shift beneath your feet. When you shift to seismic listening, you are no longer trying to decode the problem with your intellect, to dissect it with logic, to solve it with the same mind that created it. You are, instead, tuning into the vibration from which the problem itself emerged, the primal pulse of your own essential nature that has been distorted, muffled, and buried beneath layers of conditioning and fear. Seismic listening requires a fundamental reorientation of your entire being. You must stop leaning forward, stop reaching, stop grasping for the answer as if it were an object you could snatch from the air. Instead, you lean back, you sink inward, you open yourself to receive. It is a posture of radical receptivity, a willingness to be moved, to be shaped, to be transformed by what you hear. The problem that won't let you go is not a puzzle to be solved but a symphony to be heard in its entirety. Every recurring thought, every persistent anxiety, every loop of frustration is a note in this symphony, and you have been trying to isolate a single discordant tone without ever hearing the full composition. But when you listen seismically, you hear the harmony beneath the dissonance. You perceive that the problem is not a mistake in the music but an essential part of the score, a tension that must exist to create the resolution, a darkness that gives meaning to the light. This form of listening is not passive, it is intensely active, fiercely attentive, and deeply courageous. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of not knowing, to tolerate the ambiguity of the unresolved, to trust that the answer is not something you produce but something you receive. It is the listening of the mystic, the poet, the one who has stopped trying to dominate the mystery and has instead chosen to be in awe of it. When you listen seismically, you are no longer asking the problem to go away, you are asking it to reveal itself fully, to speak its truth without interruption or judgment. And in that spacious, open-hearted listening, something miraculous begins to occur. The problem begins to soften. Its edges blur. Its urgency diminishes. It no longer feels like an attack but like an unveiling. You begin to hear, not the content of the problem, but the context of it, not the surface story but the deep structure, not the symptoms but the source. And in that seismic space, the answer does not arrive as a thunderclap or a blinding flash. It rises gently, like a slow tide, like the dawn creeping over the horizon, like the first breath after a long submersion. It is not an answer that you could have ever forced or fabricated. It is an answer that was always there, waiting for you to create the silence in which it could be heard. Seismic listening is the bridge between the problem and its resolution, the conduit through which transformation flows. It is the sacred skill that turns your inner chaos into a coherent narrative, your suffering into wisdom, your confusion into clarity. And when you master it, you realize that the problem was never a wall, it was a door, and seismic listening is the key that has been in your pocket all along, waiting for you to remember how to use it, the call to the edge. This is the final threshold, the precipice where everything you have learned, every insight you have gathered, every moment of stillness you have endured, converges into a single, terrifying, and exhilarating point of decision. You have identified the signal in the static, you have embraced the moment of stillness, you have shifted to seismic listening, and now you stand at the boundary of everything you have known and everything you are becoming. The edge is not a place of comfort, it is a place of exposure. It is where the ground falls away beneath your feet, where the familiar recedes and the unknown yawns before you like an endless abyss. It is the point where the problem that has haunted you, the one that would not let you go, finally reveals its ultimate purpose, to bring you here, to this brink, to force you to choose between the life you have been living and the life that has been waiting for you. The edge is terrifying because it demands everything. It demands that you release your grip on the illusions that have kept you small, that you surrender your attachment to the stories that have defined you, that you let go of the very identity you have constructed to protect yourself from this very moment. And yet, the edge is also the most liberating place you will ever stand. It is the birthplace of transformation, the launching pad of the new, the sacred ground where the caterpillar dissolves into the chrysalis and the butterfly emerges. The edge is not an ending, it is the most profound beginning. But you cannot experience the beginning without first embracing the ending. The problem that won't let you go has been patiently, persistently, lovingly pushing you toward this edge. Every sleepless night, every moment of frustration, every pang of dissatisfaction has been a nudge, a shove, a gentle but insistent pressure guiding you to this precipice. It has refused to release you because it knew that you would never choose this threshold on your own. You would have stayed in the comfortable valley, the familiar plain, the safe but stifling middle ground. The problem loved you enough to drag you here, to the edge, where the air is thin and the view is staggering, where you can finally see the expanse of your own potential stretching out before you. Turning back is always an option, of course. It is always the easier choice. You can retreat into the static, back into the noise, back into the frantic motion that numbs and distracts. You can convince yourself that the edge is too dangerous, that the leap is too uncertain, that the risk is too great. But if you turn back, you will carry the weight of this moment forever. The problem will return, perhaps in a different form, but with the same persistence, the same love, the same refusal to let you settle for less than you're becoming. Because the problem is not your enemy, it is your ally, your teacher, your most faithful companion on the journey to yourself. And it will not abandon you, even when you abandon yourself. So, the call to the edge is a call to trust. It is a call to believe that what awaits you on the other side of your fear is not destruction but fulfillment. It is a call to recognize that the leap is not a fall but a flight, that the release is not a loss but a gain, that the surrender is not a defeat but a victory. The edge is where you finally meet yourself, not the self you have been performing, not the self you have been protecting, but the self you have been becoming all along. It is where the problem dissolves into the purpose, where the ache becomes the answer, where the question becomes the doorway. And when you step off the edge, when you release into the unknown, you discover that you were never standing on solid ground anyway, you were standing on a story, and the story has now ended, and the truth has just begun.